Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Toronto Real Estate Show with Janelle and Leslie. I'm Janelle Cameron.
Hello there. I'm Leslie Pearson.
And today we are going to talk about where prices have fallen the most in Ontario in the last few years. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you had a great week. Listen, as always, before we start, if you could just take a second and rate and review our podcast wherever you are listening to it, we would really appreciate it. And on that note, how's it going, Leslie? What's happening?
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm finding it a real mixed bag.
Yeah.
There's certainly, I think overall, in general, it's not a great time, but there are pockets that are killing it right now.
Yeah.
And so there's a real dichotomy in experience, and I don't know if that's the right word, but so I'm finding it a real mixed bag.
Yeah, and where are you finding is the hottest area?
Well, I'm working a lot in Midtown and North Toronto, I guess, and good homes marketed well, priced strategically, are going fast and are going often in multiples.
Right.
And, so that's what I'm up against right now, as opposed to some other types of housing and some other locations where things are sitting.
Yeah.
But in, Leaside, Lawrence Park, Chaplin Estates, Bennington Heights, Moore Park, things are going.
And that's kind of weird because you would expect in the more expensive neighborhoods like those that it would be slower, but it's the opposite.
We lost in multiples a couple of weeks ago, 5 offers in the $4 million range.
Right. Strange times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then it seems also like Riverdale, the beach is good. And the number one market where apparently where things are doing the best is Durham. Mm-hmm. Pickering, Ajax, Whitby in particular, like things are moving nicely. Not that they're going for crazy prices, but they're sitting on the market a lot less time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that what we've talked about for, I think, months on end is that the greatest struggle is downtown condos.
Yeah.
And that's ongoing. And I think not getting better.
And Toronto in general is suffering compared to most of the country.
Yeah.
So, if you're one of those people that have your place on the market and you're not getting any action, like you're not alone. There is, even though we talk about these good pockets, most of the city is pretty sluggish. And we don't know when things are going to change.
No.
We just don't know.
Don't know.
I don't suspect for a while though.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't want to say.
No. We've given up. Everything we knew, we've thrown out the window.
Yeah, I don't know. Life happens and people still need to make a move. And there's some logic to if you buy and sell in the same market,
Yeah.
What does it matter? But it's slow.
Mm-hmm.
It's slow other than what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, I know. I was like I don't have a lot of buyers. Like I'm just not as busy as we normally are.
Yeah. Or sellers, right?
Or sellers. Yeah, seller. I had, this is interesting. I told you I had, some sellers lined up for this time of year, and like 2 of them have lost their jobs.
Yeah.
So have decided not to sell, which is interesting.
And other people may not have lost their jobs, but they see what's going on around them and are worried that they might. So, question. I've had people questioning me for months of like, why would I want to do it now? It's just so uncertain. Yeah. I haven't been laid off yet, but who knows?
Right.
I think they feel more nervous than ever before.
Yeah. But you know what? Everyone hang in. Like it's a blip in time in terms of real estate. Things will not stay the same. It may last like this another year, another month, another 2 years. I don't know, but eventually the swing will happen. And check out our Instagram because I did an interesting post last week, I think it was, and it showed the progression of prices over, like since 1980, basically. And there are always a few dips, but it always goes up, obviously. So even in the last couple of years, when you look at the overall scheme of things, it's not that dramatic, right?
Yeah, I mean, real estate is never like a straight line. Like it's got peaks and valleys, but it ends up that the peaks win.
That's right. Yeah. So on the opposite side of that, or maybe kind of in conjunction with that, today I thought we would go over some of the areas where home prices have changed or dropped the most in the last 3 years. And there are a couple of different ways that we can look at this in terms of how it benefits you as a buyer. And the main thing is, if you're thinking of buying something in Ontario in the next year, these are probably areas that I would be considering, because some of these neighborhoods or cities did very well. They dropped in price, but we know they will go back up. And so better to get in while the market's a little bit down in these areas. The second reason is because if you are somebody who's thinking about buying an investment property, these are great options for you. Because rents really haven't changed. They've changed across the board. They're down slightly. But in these pockets, the rents are kind of the same as they were 2 years ago when you were paying top dollar for the same product, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, let's look at what these locations are, because I wonder if they're the places that had exceptionally greater gains.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something important to keep in mind as we look at these.
Yeah.
They may have been, the greater drop they've experienced might somewhat be tempered by the greater gain they experienced. But anyway, let's find out what they are.
Okay. Well, the number one area is, we're calling it Hamilton Burlington, but it's really predominantly Hamilton.
Yeah.
Where prices have dropped 26% since 2022.
Right. So there's one that speaks to my point, because I think, wasn't Hamilton one of the ones that in the days of COVID experienced a huge growth?
Yeah. But listen, before we talk about that, let me just say, it was 10 years ago, I bought a place in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Detached, 4-bedroom, not the best neighborhood, nonetheless, 4-bedroom, detached, parking, 2 bathrooms, 3 levels for $250,000. So yeah, I've made money. We all have, if you bought back in the day. So yes, prices went crazy. Now they've come back down a little bit, but we're still okay.
So what would be the height, and when was that?
So the height in we're looking at 2022 as being the peak for, even though 2021 was in some cases, but for all intents and purposes right now, we're looking at 2022 as being the best. And at that time, 1.1 million was the average price for a home in Hamilton, Burlington. And that average price is now down to 813. So that's a 26% decline.
Right.
So, will they go lower? I don't know. But Hamilton in particular, a really strong rental pool. Not the easiest place to rent, but there's a very strong rental pool, especially if you're buying close to the university or even the college, in renting there. So you can have a lot of great options for that.
So this is a good lesson. So for example, if your place was average, you bought it for $250 and it's now worth $800, $880 or almost $9.
Right.
So you've had rental income. You've grown equity, just, probably it grew really too strong in 2021, 2022. And this is just kind of leveling it off and balancing it out.
Yeah, I would say that. And, maybe let's say if we're looking at these averages and it's average of 813, maybe the average goes down to 800. Maybe, but, in 5 years from now, I guarantee you it's not going to be 700.
Right.
It's going to be up to $1 million.
Yeah. You have to always remember real estate is not a short-term purchase. Yeah. So that's great for investors. Deal there. Particularly investors, but even
for homeowners, because it's a great, Burlington or Hamilton, but even if you work in the city, living in these communities, which seem far, is not so bad, because you have, GO train options, especially in Hamilton, a lot more options to get into the city. Burlington, you have a GO train. You've got options. Yeah. So I would definitely be considering Hamilton right
Yeah.
now as
Yep.
a place, probably the number one place that I would be looking to
Makes
buy
sense
something.
to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Second, and very similar story, is Kitchener-Waterloo, where prices there have dropped 22%. And it went crazy.
22% since 2022?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So average price there was just over $1 million, and now we're looking at $786.
Wow.
So what a bargain.
Yeah, that's amazing.
What a bargain.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, I don't know if you're the kind of person who's thinking about an investment for students, Waterloo, like there's 2 universities there, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 at least.
Well,
Laurier and Waterloo.
yeah.
So you've got options with that. And then I think even just general investment. I mean, it's a good community, good place to raise a family. If you are, somebody who's interested in buying something for their own use, I think
Mm-hmm.
Kitchener-Waterloo is a good option.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then we had this one almost the same, Niagara region, where prices have fallen about 21.7%, and the average was $860 and now $672.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So these are all places, maybe with the exception of Kitchener-Waterloo, that you can work in Toronto and commute.
You can,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Niagara would depend, I think, where,
Mm-hmm.
like what side of Niagara you're on,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it would depend.
So like Toronto isn't the be all and end all. You
Yeah.
don't like starting out in particular or
Right.
with investment properties, you don't have to be
Yeah.
in central Toronto. You can take advantage of what's going on in the marketplace and really do well.
Yeah.
And when we say it's a long term purchase, it doesn't have to be that long.
No.
No. Yeah.
No.
Well, that's interesting.
And then we've got Toronto, which has dropped a total of 18.7% since 2022. And I think that's largely condos, not entirely, but largely condos.
That takes into account condos?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that would be condos.
It takes into account everything. And the average price was 1.33 and now is less than 1.1.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty substantial.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you are trying to buy in the city, and you've got $1 million, why would you not do it?
So I guess what we're saying is it's a good time to buy.
It's a good time to buy.
When prices are going down, it's a buyer's market.
It's a buyer's market, and you don't know how long they're going to be down,
Mm-hmm.
So why would you
not buy now?
I don't know.
Well, it's nervous about a recession, nervous about job security.
Yeah.
Nervous about tariffs probably still.
Yeah.
It's nerves.
It's nerves.
And there's a herd mentality to only wanting to buy when other people want to buy. There's something to that.
I don't know why we do that.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
But if you're nervous about your job security or the economy in general, I guess, it's casual of me to say, but nothing is forever. Doesn't work out. Get rid of it.
Get rid of it. That's what I say.
Yeah, I do. I'm very cavalier about it. Like nothing is forever.
No. I talked to someone yesterday who I started helping them look for a place maybe 8 years ago, and they still haven't bought.
See, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Generally, they would be, in a tough spot. So, but maybe this is their window.
It's still there. I think it's better they still would have made more money. I mean, I did have to point out how much money they've spent in rent over the past 8 years. And I think that was eye-opening because people don't look at it like that. But
I guess I'm thinking I've had clients who, buyers who take forever, and we've been looking forever and ever. And the longer, generally until maybe right now, the length of their search has almost priced them out of buying where they want to buy.
Yeah.
But except for right now, maybe there is that chance again.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because generally this is an unusual time. And so I think that people who think the market's going to go crazy or who take so long to decide have been priced out of Toronto.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then there's a couple that I have that maybe we can look at it now again.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen very much.
No,
there
it doesn't.
are those peaks and valleys, and we're in a valley, but the valleys are usually sporadic and they're not long term.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
I want to point out Windsor because it had less of a decline than I thought that it had, under 5%, 4.8% over that period of time. And the average price of a home in Windsor is now $650, so still a really good option. Thunder Bay, which if I had been looking for another investment property, I probably would have looked at Thunder Bay.
Really? Why?
Just because it was on the rise and it's still cheap. And you can get a home there on average for $308,000. And it's gone down 8% in the last few years. So that seems like, to me, an opportunity.
It's just I don't know much about it.
Me
I
either.
know several people from there, but nobody that stayed there.
But if you're buying it as an investment property, you don't need to.
But if you're buying for an investment property, why are people choosing to live there? Do you know what's there? Like, are there tenants?
Yeah, there is.
Like, why are they there?
I think they work locally or they don't work, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know. Like, work locally. Like, I guess it's like yeah. I mean, it's definitely good.
I know a couple of people there, and one's a hospital administrator. Everywhere's got to have a hospital, and the other's a teacher. Everywhere's got schools.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's flip the script a little bit. And now we're looking at the areas that have gained the most since 2022. Absolutely none of them are in the positive in Ontario.
So
Ontario has no city.
So they've lost the least, you mean?
No, I'm talking, there are cities outside of Ontario that have gained a bunch of money.
Outside of Ontario.
Mm-hmm. Ontario, there's no city in Ontario that has gained money in the last 3 years, which is interesting. However, if you own in Quebec City, you've gained 49.5%.
Holy crap.
In 3 years. 49%.
Why would that be?
I don't know, but you can still get a place there for $535. You know, in 2022 it was $358. I mean, what a bargain. Then we have 2 more cities in Quebec. St. John, 1, 2, 3 more cities in Quebec.
Wow.
Yeah. Saskatoon, Regina, Calgary. Even Calgary's even done well. They're up 10% in the last 3 years. Then we have another city in Quebec, and then Winnipeg, Edmonton, Halifax. So interesting. So when you look at it like this, you can kind of really, is that just because Ontario was so overpriced?
So hot. So do you have access there to which places in Ontario lost the least?
On this chart, Ontario city that lost the least was Sudbury at only 1.1%.
Wow.
And then Windsor.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're just looking at the major cities here.
Yeah.
Vancouver and Victoria are on this list, but they've done way better than we have in Toronto. Like Victoria's lost 14%, Greater Vancouver 8.7%.
So Toronto has to be heavily impacted by condos.
Yes.
It's distorting, I think, our numbers.
I think it's distorting our numbers. But then there's, I think, some other, and we're talking, if Greater Toronto. So that takes into account, obviously, like Oakville and Mississauga, Milton, Brampton. These places have really done poorly.
Yeah.
So Brampton, I think, is probably one of the worst cities I've seen in a while, because you can't, not only are things not selling, but like nothing, there's so much listed and nothing is moving.
So would you urge people to consider buying in such a place?
I don't think I would buy in Brampton right now.
Like, what about downtown condos?
I think that I would, if your option is buy, yes, I would. I personally would buy a downtown condo right now.
I would too. I'm getting more cautious about how long it's going to take to recover.
I think it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot longer than I thought.
And I think as long as you are okay with that, I think it's a good option.
Yeah.
What I would absolutely not do is buy pre-construction.
Oh.
In any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think that whole side of things has to change, and it's never going to be the same.
No. And I think, like, if you're one of those people that are thinking like there are deals to be had on the pre-construction side, yes, there are. But I would not do it.
No, and I never would have.
I would have never either, but especially wouldn't do it now anywhere, not just in Toronto. I would maybe a freehold, but like not a condo. So, you know, I had a conversation with someone the other day who was thinking about buying something in Miami of all places, pre-construction. And I was like, just be careful, because I just feel like it's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Everywhere, in Florida is a disaster right now in terms of real estate prices.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem like the place to me that I would be investing in pre-construction.
I wonder what's going to happen to all of these, you know, 500 square foot shoe boxes downtown that investors bought but are walking away from. Like, I don't know. It seems we have such a housing crisis, and yet we have places that are never going to sell. I wonder if they'll be converted to rentals. I don't know. I don't know.
It's a weird situation.
Yeah. It's awful.
You're right, though. Why would, it doesn't make sense. Also, you know, it doesn't make sense if there's such a housing crisis.
Yeah.
Why don't they?
Well, I just think there's an opportunity there. There's several opportunities. What I think they're going to do ultimately is charge capital gains on your principal residence.
Yeah,
I think that's coming soon.
Yeah.
Not soon, but sooner than we hope.
Yeah, you could be right.
And that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the talk recently has turned to what can we do to bring the cost of housing down? And, you know, homeowners don't want that.
Yeah, they don't want that.
There's like such a divide between generations right now.
Yeah. And if I found out that if you found out, well, see, it won't affect you as much because you just bought. But for those
it will
of us,
affect me. Huge.
But it would only affect the price you just paid, right?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that offline, but it'll be huge.
But for some people, like it would be not a big deal if you bought in the last few years when prices have been high and now they're falling. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But for most of us who owned 20 years ago, they bought something 15, 10 years when the prices were so low. So knowing, you know, if you knew that was going to happen, would you sell stuff off, or what would you do?
100%. And I think that would be the goal of doing that.
Interesting.
Because I think like so many people, that's the nest egg. Yeah. And if you take away a big chunk of it,
right?
If that's it. I have heard of people who are already selling for that because of that risk. Yeah. I don't think it think
it might take a while.
That's going to offend so much of the voting public. It's going to burn people, but so I can't think that. And I don't know that that's the solution, but maybe we could get rid of a second line transfer tax in Toronto.
Yeah, that would be good too. Yeah, maybe.
And more purpose-built apartments, and all these apartments that are just sitting there, or these condos. Yeah, maybe there's options there. I don't know.
Also, I don't understand why everyone, sorry, this is going to offend people, but I don't understand why everybody feels like it's their right to own property in a major city. I don't feel like it's my right. If I lived in New York City, I don't feel like it's my right to be able to afford a $5 million condo.
I guess, is it because everyone's parent had that right? Right,
but like life changes. Like we can afford, I'd like to afford I'd like to have a place on the bridle path. I can't afford it. I don't feel, what's the difference? Like I don't feel, entitled to that. I feel like, I don't know. Anyway, that's a story for another day. So that's going to be interesting to see. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But
yeah, we'll see. I just more talk about bringing home values down now than I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But so this is interesting. So some places to reflect on for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think don't be afraid to get into the market for sure. Throw your hat in the ring at some of these areas. And like we always say, if you can't afford to buy a house in Toronto or Hamilton, buy something in, Windsor or Sudbury or Thunder Bay where it's $300,000. Rent it out, build some equity, hold it for a little while. Let's say you put down, $50,000. Is your $50,000 better spent there, or like in the market somewhere, or certainly not going toward rent? So these are things I would definitely be considering.
I agree.
That's about all I got.
That's it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, listen, I hope you had a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social channels at the Janelle Cameron Team. And if we can answer any questions for you, reach out, and I hope you have a good one. Happy real estate.
Happy real estate, everyone.